In 50 years, I hauled just about everything: steel, cattle, frozen food, a whole house one time. But the strangest load I ever carried wasn't strange because of what it was. It was strange because of what it did to people. It was a rock. That's all. A rock. And a whole country came out in the middle of the night just to watch it go by. Let me tell you about it. It started with a phone call I didn't expect. An old friend in the heavy haul business. He said, "Dale, we need the old hands for this one." I said, "What are we moving?" And he went quiet for a second. Then he said, "A boulder." I laughed. I thought he was pulling my leg, but he wasn't. It was a single stone, over 300 tons, tall as a two-story house, bound for a museum in a big city out west, to sit there as a work of art. They were going to move a rock, slower than a man walks, clear across the country, and it was going to take the better part of 2 weeks. This wasn't a haul. This was an expedition. Now, where do you even get a rock like that? They dug it out of a quarry, cut it loose from the side of a mountain. It had been sitting in that ground, longer than there's been anything alive to see it. Millions of years, in the dark, in the earth, and a crane lifted it out into the daylight for the first time since the world was young. Just getting it onto the trailer took the better part of a week. You'd stand there and think, who are we to go moving a thing this old? But move it we would. Now you have to understand what a load like that is. We call it a super load. It's too big for any normal rule. You need a permit from every county you touch, every one, and the route gets surveyed for months beforehand. Here's the part that got me. You don't take the short way, you take the way that can hold the weight. Our rock sat less than 60 miles from where it was going, but the roads between could not carry us. The bridges would have buckled. So they drew us a path over 100 miles long, the long way. The only way, because when a thing is heavy enough, the map stops being about distance and starts being about what can bear you. And then there was the rig itself. I'd never seen anything like it. Picture a trailer near 300 feet long, riding on a couple hundred wheels, all of them steered by computer, tractors pushing from behind and pulling from the front at the very same time. You don't drive a thing like that. Not alone. Not really. You conduct it, like a whole orchestra of steel and rubber, all working to move one silent stone. There were dozens of us on that crew, and every one of us mattered. We could only move it at night, when the roads were empty and the world was asleep, and we crawled, 5, maybe 6 miles an hour, slower than you'd stroll. Ahead of us went a small army, police, holding back what little traffic there was, crews with poles, lifting the power lines up, so the top of that rock could pass underneath. They swung the traffic signals out of the way. They pulled up signs. They moved them back after. Think about that. To move one rock down a road, they had to take a piece of the country apart, every single night, and put it back together before dawn. That first night I stood next to it, and I have to tell you, it humbled me. A wall of stone, older than every road I'd ever driven, older than the country, older than people, and my whole job now was to help it go slow. I'd spent 50 years trying to make good time, chasing the next town, beating the clock, and now the entire job was patience. The crawl got into you after a while. It slowed your heart down to match it. I didn't know it yet, but that rock was about to teach me something, and those nights had a strange beauty to them. Out ahead, the road ran black and empty. Above us, more stars than you'd ever see in a town. The only sound was that deep, slow engine, and the creak of all that steel taking the weight. The crew would pass coffee in the dark. Nobody talked much. You didn't need to. We were all watching the same impossible thing, inch its way toward the morning. I've had a lot of quiet nights on the road. None of them were ever quiet like that. The first night, it was just a few folks, standing on a corner, phones out. I figured they'd wandered out of a bar. But the next night, there were more. And the night after that, there were more still. Word had gotten around. Somewhere out there, a giant rock was crossing the land, at walking pace, in the dark, and people wanted to see it. I couldn't figure out why. Not yet, but they kept coming. By the middle of that trip, it wasn't a few folks anymore, it was crowds. Whole families lined the road, lawn chairs, coolers, little kids up way past bedtime. People threw parties on their front lawns just to watch us pass. They cheered. They cheered for a rock, moving slower than they could walk. Saw a young man get down on one knee and propose to his girl, right there beside that stone in the dark. I stood there thinking, this is the most ridiculous thing I have ever seen, and somehow the most beautiful. And it grew into something none of us expected. The whole region started following along. It was on the news every night. Where's the rock now? How far did it get? People gave it a nickname. They tracked it like a comet passing through. Reporters walked beside us in the dark. Somewhere along the line, a slow stone on a trailer had become the biggest thing happening for 100 miles. And still, not one of us could have told you exactly why. Now, don't let me make it sound easy. It was not easy. There were spots that took our breath away. A narrow pass where we had inches on each side, inches, with 300 tons. A turn so tight it took us over an hour to make it. Everybody dead silent, watching, guiding, and the bridges. Lord, the bridges, you'd feel the whole world hold still. As that weight eased across, every man on that crew holding his breath, until the back wheels were on solid ground again. When you're moving something ancient, something you could never, ever replace, you feel the weight of it in your chest, not just under the wheels. I got to talking to people along the way, at the rest stops, when we'd hold up for the day. A little boy asked me how old the rock was. I told him nobody really knows, older than any of us could count. His eyes went wide as saucers. There was an old woman who came out every single night. Same spot, same chair. She told me she just liked knowing something that big and that old was passing right by her little street. That's when it started to make sense to me. They weren't coming for a rock. They were coming for something they couldn't quite name. Now, I'll be honest with you. Part of me kept asking one thing the whole way. Why? It cost a fortune to move that stone. Millions, all those permits, all those crews, all those nights. For a rock that a museum was just going to set down and let people stand and look at. I couldn't make that math work in my head. Why would anybody go to all that trouble for a thing that doesn't do a single useful thing? And then on one of those last nights, it finally came to me. We live in a fast world. Everything's a blur. Everything's in a hurry. Nobody stops. Nobody looks up. And here came this thing. Ancient, enormous, impossibly slow. Something older than every worry those people carried. It made them stop. It made them stand still in the dark and feel small in front of something huge. And I'll tell you a secret I learned that trip. People are starving to feel small like that. To feel a little wonder. I wasn't hauling a rock across the country. I was hauling wonder. I was giving a whole nation permission to stop and stare and feel something. The last night, we brought it home, eased that stone into its place at the museum, and a crowd bigger than any of them was waiting. They cheered one final time, and then it was still. After 2 weeks of crawling through the dark, the rock just stopped, and it would never move again. It'll sit there 1,000 years, long after every one of us is gone. And for a few strange weeks, I was one of the men who moved it. I stood there in that quiet, and I felt a kind of grief I couldn't explain. The job was over. I hauled freight for years after that, but I was never quite the same driver. Every load I pulled from then on, I'd wonder what it meant to somebody, where it was going, whose life it would touch, and I never forgot what that slow rock taught me. I'd spent my whole life going as fast as I could, and the most important thing I ever carried, I carried at a walking pace. The fastest man on the road learned the most from the slowest load he ever pulled. I'm an old man now, and I still see it, clear as anything. Those faces along the road at 2 in the morning, lit up orange by our flashers, kids on their father's shoulders, everybody waving, everybody smiling at a rock. You spend a whole career hauling things people need, and then once I got to haul something nobody needed at all, and that was the one they came out for. That was the one they'll remember. So that was the strangest load I ever hauled, not because it was big, though it surely was, not because it was heavy or slow. It was strange because it woke people up. It reminded a whole country how to feel small and how good that can feel. So here's what I'll leave you with. Every now and then, let something stop you. Stand still in the dark and look up at it. Let yourself feel small for a minute. It's one of the best feelings there is. A rock taught me that. Slower than walking, in the middle of the night, all the way across America.